Welcome, I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Now, I am tickled pink to see that each and every one of you have your notepads and pens ready because I want you to take notes. Make a commitment to yourself that you will jot down some sort of action item that you will implement in your business today, because that's what this is all about, implementation. Now, today we are going to talk about writing employment ads or employment postings. And you may not be in the market for anybody. Maybe you haven't had a need ever to advertise for someone, or you don't anticipate that need coming across right away. But here's the thing. When we talk business, there's usually something that you can pick up, you can take away. That's what that notepad is for. And hopefully you'll glean something that will make you more effective as a manager. So let's take a look at this. Let's dive right in and see what we can learn together. So where you need to start when you want to compose an employment ad, some sort of posting, maybe it's going to go on your website, in your career section, it's going to go in the various job boards throughout the world. You're trying to acquire talent, you're trying to recruit. And I think people underestimate the importance of doing this a little bit differently, that there is some actual strategizing that should go into this. So where do we begin? You know that thing in school when you're taking tests and you're taking a multiple choice test and they say, if you don't know the answer, you should select what? Which of the answers should you select if you don't know? You were all taught this. Select C, because statistically, there is a slightly higher percent chance that you'll get it right with a complete guess. Of course, you want to eliminate some responses that you know, that you've been given these strategies and everything. Well, when I ask you a question, where should we begin? There's some pretty common answers that you can guess. In fact, my family has always teased me that whenever I asked a musical trivia question throughout the years, they would just default to the answer Prince. Is it Prince? Like, oh, do you guys know who wrote this song? Prince? Is it Prince? And there was a good chance it was going to be right. To the point where I'd be like, okay, can you name one of the Beatles? And they'd be go, I don't know, Prince? Is Prince one of the Beatles? It's like, okay, no, not every answer is Prince. But when it comes to business and Michael Bickert's asking you a question and I say, where should we begin? There's a couple of default answers. You might say value. Michael, is it value? You're always harping on about value. Measurement, right? You have to measure something. So those are a couple of the good answers. But actually, when it comes to strategizing, when it comes to putting together a good game plan for business, I always start with the objective. The answer, the default answer you should give is, what's the objective? And when you're recruiting, whether we're talking about the very beginning, when you're considering whether you need somebody for your team, then you're considering what to write down when you're composing an employment ad, what to put together in terms of questions for interviewing, or when you're writing a role description, or when you're creating a report card, some sort of performance analytics for the person. All along the way, you start by brainstorming the objectives. It all starts with the objectives. And if you challenge that, let's sort of debate that right now. You might say, well, no, I don't need to know the objectives because I just know that I need someone, Michael. So when I'm writing an employment ad, I just want to focus on getting somebody. And I would say, that's not your objective. Your objective isn't to find somebody. You might say, oh yeah, I know you're going to say you want to find the best person. Not necessarily. Because really when you get to the objective, you're trying to fulfill a need that you have in your business. And you have presumably decided that, well, I need a person to accomplish the objectives that I have. I need a person to fulfill this need. But if I could give you some sort of equipment, maybe you need your widgets stamped in the production process, and I could give you the automated widget stamper 808, and that would solve your needs and accomplish the objective, and it would do so with an investment of lower resources or a greater return on your investment of resources. You would choose that. So it's really about the objective. Think about it. What is it you're trying to accomplish in your business that's led you down this road to make the determination that you're going to invest resources in another team member, in a new team member for a new role, or the replacement of a team member? What's your objective? And start there. When you think that, start writing that down. Write down those objectives. Here's what I want to do. And one of the questions you want to ask yourself when considering objectives is, how will we know if we're successful? How will I know if this person is successful because they accomplished the objective? And what is the objective? So you're writing that down. Start with that, and then you will start to get an idea of, okay, well, what kind of things do I need to communicate to those prospective leads, that talent that I'm trying to acquire. Now, what's your goal here? Let's assume for the sake of argument here that you have concluded, yes, I do need someone. I am going to compose a employment ad, some sort of posting, and this might be internal and it could be public. It should be the same for both. The first thing I want you to realize is that there may be a difference between, even though we're starting, the common ground is we're starting with the objective and all those things throughout the human resource management process, you want to keep your cards close to your vest when it comes to the recruitment phases. So you don't want to give away everything and tell your prospective leads, your newly acquired, well, not newly acquired talent, those people who are applying for the job, you don't want to tell them everything up front. What you do want to do is entice them into applying, and you want to be transparent and truthful, 100% truthful, but you don't want to be completely giving them everything so that they show up and just tell you exactly what you want to hear. So in your role description and in your report card, your performance analytics down the road, once you have someone, then you're completely transparent. You can tell them everything you're looking for and everything. But when you're looking for people, there is a danger that you'll give away too much in your employment ad, and they will show up, and anybody who's really good at interviewing is going to know, and anybody who can, you know, with a worth salt is going to put together a resume and a cover sheet that tells you exactly what you want to hear because you've told them. And so look at that objective list and then start writing and be creative. The first tip I'm going to give you is, well, maybe I've given you a couple tips already, but a real important thing I want you to factor in writing, composing your employment advertisements and postings is that you are going to be unique. You have to realize that there's a lot of positions being advertised and you want yours to stand out. So don't just write the same old generic. If you intend to appeal to those people that have more of a traditional mindset, you may wish to A/B test. That is, you may want to have two employment ads, one that is traditionally written, that's based off of a role description, and the other one that's far more creative, and see what works better. I will advise you that in certain positions, one may work better than another. So maybe you're hiring for sales or a frontline greeter position, something like this, that you really want somebody outgoing, extroverted, who's got a great personality and loves communicating with people. Maybe something more creatively written is going to appeal to that person more. So consider what it is that you're looking for. So when we talked about in the video that I did on recruitment in general, I didn't focus exclusively on writing the employment ad, and some of these tips are in that video, so look at it. I said, give consideration to who you're trying to attract, and what the process was is you're going to write down the characteristics that you're looking for, and then you're going to convert those characteristics to behaviors that will manifest, and you can observe observable behaviors, and then you're going to convert those into questions for the interview. Well, when you're using this technique, the same thing is useful for composing that employment ad. Is start with the characteristics. Like you might say, well, I want somebody who's very resourceful. I want somebody who is very honest. I want somebody who's energetic, who's hardworking, these types of things. Then start to think, well, what things are observable in their character and in their actual on-the-job performance that would lead me to the conclusion that they have those things. And these will all lead you towards good interview questions, but how does this relate to writing the employment ad? Well, it starts with you thinking about accomplishing the objectives. Once you have those objectives down, you're going to say, well, who's more likely to accomplish this objective? And we talked earlier in my example about some people may be more extroverted and outgoing. Those are characteristics. And so now what you do is you're strategizing and writing your ad toward a target market. Your market in terms of talent that you're trying to acquire is maybe more extroverted, or there may be more detail oriented or whatever, and you can compose your ad geared in such a way that would appeal to one versus another. I wrote a very creative ad one time for somebody in accounting, and it was a bit of a dud. I was really surprised. I thought it was really well written, and I thought it was very creative and should be outstanding in a job board with all sorts of other competing ads. And then I thought about it, and it's like, well, the personality that I'm looking for here is probably not impressed with all the flowery language I used and maybe some of the humor that was inherent in the ad, that kind of thing. That's not the personality of who I'm looking for. So give consideration to that. And to the extent that you're not entirely sure what the personality might be, then you may want to do some of that split testing, that A/B testing, where you write a couple of ads. If your budget allows for it, and these days with the digital job boards and everything, you should be able to post more than one ad and be able to, get information and data back to you by taking a look at what's working the most. And those of you who hire more frequently, this is a much more valuable suggestion for you, because you can now take that the next time you're hiring and you can apply what you've learned from that data. So the first point is be very creative and try to be unique in your job posting. Make it stand out. Even, I guess, if you are looking for someone who maybe isn't that more creatively inclined, or maybe they're not extroverted, you can still be different. You want it to stand out. Just think if you were at some sort of bazaar or some craft fair and you had a product and everything looked the same, all the products, you want something that really grabs people's attention. So when you're composing, think about what is the title, what is the position going to be called, what is the line that the people are going to see when they first look at the ad. And these days there's so many algorithms that try to match. Don't be discouraged by that. Don't assume that what you wrote isn't working because you're getting a lot of people who are applying who are not right for the position. That could be just the job match algorithms putting things out and automatically submitting resumes and that kind of stuff. We're looking for people who are actually going to read what you've written and they're going to apply. Now, depending on the job board you're using, some of them will give you sort of a subject line or a heading, and that is often used by people who are composing these ads. They'll often put the title of the position you're looking for, but the title may be meaningless. It might mean something within the context of your business, but it may not be very meaningful for those people who are applying. Maybe they don't know what a widget stamper is, and even though that's the title of the position, they may have no clue. So try to be more creative and think about, again, what are we looking for in terms of a characteristic? And let's put that out front. Or what is something that's really going to draw people in? Maybe you're offering a very competitive or lucrative salary or benefit or something like that. And depending again on the job board, you might be able to put that in I'm going to call it the subject line or the field that they first see in the job listings. And then when they drill down and they click on that and they get to the details of the posting, the actual area that you composed everything, then you can have a more specific job. I would make it more generic. It doesn't mean, like, if you are going to call the person the widget stamper internally, you could say, production line specialist or something like this that is more generic, that would have a little bit more appeal in terms of writing the ad. So give consideration to this. Don't look at it through your eyes. You see things day in and day out for your operation. It all makes sense to you. Try to get some feedback from somebody else who maybe doesn't understand your business as much, and have them describe to you what they think you're looking for based on the ad you put together. So I wouldn't recommend when you're writing the base of the ad that you get too complex in terms of writing paragraph style. Bullet points are really good, and you can use sentence fragments and you can use colloquial language to get across a message. And again, think about who it is that you're trying to appeal to. So I remember one position that I advertised for a long time ago. I put like a bullet point. I said, this is you. And then I put bullet point, intelligent, hyphen, Rubik's Cube, no problem. And then I put next bullet point, hard worker, and hyphen. And I've just put little snippets there for a person. And then I put, this is us. And then I started to advertise those things, or I highlighted those things that would attract someone to the organization. So that's the next thing I want you to consider, is what things, brainstorm those things that make it very attractive for someone to work in your organization. Do you have special perks that they will be able to take advantage of? Now, I'm not getting into all the benefits and all that kind of thing. What is your unique value proposition as an employer? What makes it unique? Like, do you have free products that your people, maybe you're an ice cream shop and people get ice cream at cost or something like this. If there's something like that that would really stand out, or you have, tickets to a particular event that people want to go to, or you have a geographical location that makes it really easy for people to commute to work or to park or that kind of stuff, you can advertise those things. Think about, when you're describing your organization, about those things that set you apart in terms of just the culture and the feel. Because the next tip I want to give you is, although I want you to attract as many applicants as possible, you don't want to attract anyone who is not fit for the job or is incongruent with your culture and with your values. So be transparent. Think of this as, if you weren't advertising for talent, an employment ad, you were advertising to sell widgets, and you wouldn't want to trick people into, landing on your website and finding out the widget isn't at all what they're interested in. That would just be a waste. It would be a waste of resources, and it would be misleading. You would want people to know, here's what the widget is, and if you buy it, this is what you actually get. It's the same thing with employment advertising. You want to be as enthusiastically promotional as possible. You want to persuade people, influence people to apply. For example, if no experience is necessary, if you're going to train on the job, then put that on there. That's going to open up that talent pool and get more people to apply. Another thing would be if you offer a great deal of training, or if you're not considering the educational requirements, those kind of things. You can highlight that to try to draw in other people who might make assumptions and go, oh, they're probably only hiring people who have university degree, college degree, or that have a lot of experience. If, all those types of things, if that applies in your case, make sure that you put that in the employment ad. What we are omitting is telling the people the words that they should put on their resume and what they should say when they get in front of you in an interview, if they make it that far. You don't want to give away your whole hand, but you want to be transparent, and you want to entice as many people to apply as possible, and you want to exclude those people who will not be a good fit. So I've used lines like, people with XYZ need not apply, so I don't want to really get into what those types of things are, because it's position dependent. It's also industry and organizational dependent, what your culture is, what your values are. But if there's something that there's lots of people who apply who, the one example I could give is, if you do require experience, then say that. Say, people with fewer than whatever length of experience you're requiring need not apply. Or people who do not speak whatever language you transact in need not apply. You can say those types of things, but be careful to be exclusionary, because I would recommend that you keep your mind open to those candidates that they might be diamonds in the rough. And we've had the greatest success in acquiring talent by not looking for what you might traditionally expect is the right candidate, by looking at things like education and experience and their resume and their references, all that kind of stuff. We have a proprietary mechanism through which we take people through screening, and I would recommend that you develop that. That's a topic for another video. But often you can find great candidates that do not have experience and do not have a formal education. But they're really motivated and they want to work hard, and they turn out to be wonderful team members for you. So be careful using exclusionary language, but if it is a deal breaker for you and you know that, then put that in the ad. That way you're being transparent and you can not waste other people's time and not waste your time by having too many. But generally speaking, at the top of the funnel, you want as many coming in as possible. I always use the analogy of American Idol. It's like, well, the person who's going to win American Idol, many of the people in line who are going to audition to try to get that golden ticket, they didn't have a shot. But American Idol wanted as many people coming out as possible, because you never know what you're going to find. And some people are not really good at assessing their own abilities. Some people are like, I don't know if I can do this or not, but they go in and they try it and they're wonderful. They're a great fit. That happened in American Idol. It will happen for you as well in terms of acquiring talent if you put the right things in place. So let's just review here what things have we said. We're going to start with the objective. We're going to also consider what characteristics we're looking for that would be observable on the job. And then we're going to avoid telling people outright what we want, but we're going to consider what we might describe in the position that's going to be very attractive in describing what we're looking for without showing completely our hand. Like if you're saying you're looking for someone who's hardworking, that's okay. You can say that, and then a person may have to substantiate in some way that they are hardworking or whatever. You're also going to be creative. You're going to try to create and compose something that stands out. You're going to make sure that you focus on that subject heading line or whatever, depending on the job board. And then you're going to want to consider the language that you use that is relevant to the job market, viewed through the lens of those candidates, those prospective applicants who are applying for the position, not what's relevant in your business. So it's okay to change up the title and that kind of thing. Use some bullet points. Well, also another thing is you're not paying per word like the old days when you're advertising in the classifieds in a newspaper. Now with a digital ad, you can put more and more in there. Another tip I will give you is to use some multimedia. You may be able to, depending on the job board, add some links, add an embedded video that describes things. Maybe you want to be, speaking to someone and maybe you find that easier and you can tell them. Maybe you could do a little tour of your facility and show them, here's why it's so great to work here. I included that many times, videos that talked about how great a place it was to work, try to entice people in that. So consider multimedia. Is there a photo? All those perks, or not all the perks, but those things that set you aside that make it attractive for someone to apply. Another tip I would give you is to consider giving some sort of task or some sort of hoop that the person has to jump through in order to apply. Now, you may have a great deal, a very thorough screening process and all sorts of things that they have to do in order to make it to actually being offered a position, and that's great. But what about at this early stage? Think of this as a bit of a filter where people will self-select, and you can get rid of those people who didn't even read your position. They just had the algorithm on the job board, job match them, and they're just submitting something. There may be talent there that you might miss out on by doing what I'm recommending now, but I would say that's probably the exception, not the rule. Consider that a person who actually took the time to read about your position and is applying for it because of its uniqueness, because they're probably a better fit and a good fit for your organization culturally and values, and with the objectives, and they want to accomplish those objectives, those types of things appeal to them. That is going to speak to the likelihood of success and not having to turn that position over time and again. So do something that I refer to as a self-selection method, where a person has to do something. Assign them a task. Maybe you want them to record a video and submit a video. I've done that several times. Ask people to record a quick video of themselves as the initial stage. In addition to their resume, include a link to a little YouTube video or something that they tell a little bit about themselves, why they might be good for the position. that these days, that's fairly easy to do. It's a low barrier of entry, but it's much more difficult than just having an algorithm automatically apply for the position for them. And that will be that first layer of filter. And now you get some indication. You've got some people, oh, these people are motivated. They're at least motivated enough to take the first step. Consider that as a best practice these days. I would really recommend that. Don't dismiss the idea of multimedia and the video tip. What you actually say in the position is less important than some of these other tips that are going to differentiate you and align the objectives of you and your candidates, and thinking about it from that perspective. As we go through this discussion, I think of how many more things that could be relevant, and I just in the interest of time and how long the video will get, I think that's where I want to leave it today. But I'd like to hear back from you on what things you push back on, where you're like, oh, I don't know that makes sense, where I wasn't clear enough, or you need a little bit more clarity, a little bit more advice on, maybe the video section, or how long should the ad be, or how much should I put in. Michael, you're saying keep your cards close to your vest. What do you mean by that? Like, all these kinds of things I would like to hear from you so that I can give you more relevant advice that will help you create really good employment postings and ads, and you can acquire talent like that. If you have better talent in your organization, he who fields the best team is going to win. You're going to outdo the competition. That's what this is all about. So, and if you don't want to do any of this, if this all makes you sort of roll your eyes and go, I'd rather not have to do all this, then let us do this for you. Just reach out to our HR department. We can go out and acquire the talent. We've got lots of processes and people in place and automations to make this much simpler, and perhaps your time is spent elsewhere. You can learn from doing this. Sometimes you might want to do this and hire us and see, who's getting the better results. And there's nothing wrong with doing something and framing it through the lens of education and the experience you get, and deciding whether you're good at this or not. Anyway, leave some comments that we can learn from, because we need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.